Hi all, it's me. I hope everything is going well with you and that you're taking care of yourselves and the ones you love. I want to start doing a monthly blog, I guess, of sorts, vlog, whatever the new fandangled term is today. But I want to take random things from my phone, maybe some pics and videos where relevant, and just go over my month. I intend to do it in two parts, so to speak. Since I think most of you are here for Isopods, I am going to break down my month with them first, a progress report of sorts, I guess, and then after that, I will, as mentioned, just go over my life and what I saw and share some stuff with you all. Before I start things off with my ISO pals, if you enjoy this, please comment below. I love the interactions. I also appreciate any tips, critiques, feedback about my setups or husbandry. Something is on your mind, let me know. And if you find you did like this, click that little thumb-like icon thing and let YouTube know you did like it. And don't be scared to hit that other icon that says subscribe if you want to see more. Now, November's almost over, and I decided to start doing this actually today, but in the future, the monthly wrap-ups will be a lot more punctual, I promise. With all that out of the way and, well, a lot more to say, let's wrap up October. But before we do, check out this video. Just so you all know, I don't have a lot of money. I will not likely be getting more isopods until at the earliest the new year if I purchase any. Couple that with the fact that as of doing this, it's November and snowing and freezing outside. I will not be getting any wild caught ones either. Back in October, I did grab and start two separate wild caught colonies, so let's start there. Porcelio spinicornis. So these are up there with my Gestroy in terms of which is my favorite isopod. And while my love for them does have quite a bit of crossover, there's a little bit of difference as well. I call these guys gold-handed isopods or gold hands, as if you look closely at some of them, they may have what looks like, I think, cool little golden hands and footprints. They have a pretty broad color range, which is awesome too. And speaking of visuals, I'm kind of nervous that I have, what is it, Oniscus ocellus in here. So if you see any, let me know. But moreover, if you have a way to note the differences or something you can share with me like that to help me, isolate them and keep them separate, let me know, please. So I did catch these guys all on the same type of wood from a fallen tree. I have pictures and video somewhere. I will try to post it, and I'm not smart, so I don't know the type of tree either. So if you do and can identify it, if I share it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll try and go out and get it sometime soon. I did have two separate little foraging outings to grab them and have somewhere between 20 and 30. I put the tank together originally with what I had, which was cork bark, but later grabbed, as mentioned, the wood from out where I actually collected them and put that in there with them. As of the end of October, I did find one dead at some point and have not seen any young. Neither of those is really a surprise. Well, maybe the former is, as I wasn't sure how well they'd adapt from coming outside to the inside. That coupled with the fact that, as I mentioned, I did change the wood and just be in there a little more than I thought I should be. I expected a few of them to actually die off, a few more to die off, I should say, than I found. But in regards to the latter, not seeing any young, I didn't expect that this soon, obviously, anyway. And while the majority of these are larger, more mature specimens, I did snatch a few juveniles, so that's cool. Now, I have not been able to find any good care guide video or material. Everything is very broad and general and vague. So I'm going to start a video soon with how I care for them. Not saying that this is how you should care for them. I don't want to bog this video down with that though, so I'm not going to go into that here. But all in all, these guys are doing great. What else I love about them is how active they are. Generally, there is, I say this very often about these bubbas, there's just several of them out and about, either resting on wood, slogging around, munching on whatever food I have out there, and just having, loving their lives. Moving on to my Trichelopus rathke, I believe is how it's said, and if it's not, I apologize, but I only have a few of these guys in a small container. I think I caught somewhere between 5 and 10, so any progress here will likely be a lot slower, because on top of the fact that, as I mentioned, there's that smaller number, these guys seem to be, I don't know if shy is the right word, but they have a propensity for digging, similar to canyon giants, at least as my initial observation with them are going. And my clowns. These guys are an example of making the best of the worst. I have zebras, as mentioned, and in them I found 4 white zebras, as I will mention later. So I called the local place where I purchased the aforementioned zebras and asked if they had more, and they said yes. It's a little bit of a drive, so it's not something I'm just going to drive down there to see. So I did drive down there, and they did not have them. Apparently they had sold them the day before, and the people working that day didn't know. Now, they did have clowns. They referred to them as klugii or klugii. I've heard it stated as both. And in my head, as I'm very, very new to this, I mistook those as gestroi. And I didn't have them at the time, but I wanted them. And I'm not smart, so I confused the two. And I didn't check or look at them until I got home, and yeah, boom, surprise! And it was a brilliant mistake, though. I love these guys. They're out and active, probably up there with the other two that are out the most for me, which is my zebras and my spinnies. Even though I have only about 10 or 12, they seem eager to be out and about, generally speaking. And I have not flipped these guys at all yet, and again, I'm nervous and excited for it, but that will be coming very soon. My zebras. I love my zebras. As mentioned a while ago, I purchased them from a local store and ended up isolating 4 of them, as they are the white zebras or high whites. I've heard them called a few different things. And while this is cheating, literally today, as I'm, filming other stuff and getting ready for this now, I did spot a chocolate zebra in there. So don't tell anybody, because it's currently November and this is supposed to be October's report. Shh. Anyway, I moved these guys into a larger enclosure recently, since they're pretty numerous, and they've had 2 tiny birthing periods, I guess I'll call it, where I only specifically noticed no more than 3, I believe it's mankai, but the little babies, so I know they're at least active in that regard. offhand, again, these guys are definitely up there in terms of a lack of shyness or a willingness to just be out and about, whether it's light, dark, or I'm feeding them, whatever. And I think what may make me believe that these guys and my clowns are less skittish than my spinnies is the fact that when you spook a spinnycorn, they're gone. They dart. They don't mess around. But when you kind of spook a zebra or one of the clowns, they kind of look at you and let you know they are moving, but they're not moving because of you. They're moving because they want to, and they're going to go at their own pace, so to speak. I love it. So, lastly, I did do a Flip It Friday for these guys in November, and there will be a lot more to come with them. So these are my white zebras, and there is not and will not be a lot of news very often as there's only 4 of them. And I would love to get more, but well, isopods cost money, more so in this morph. And I, as mentioned a couple times, just don't have an abundance of money. And I don't have a network here where I can trade with people locally, sadly. So that's something that will be out in the future. But in the meantime, they're great eaters. And there are almost always 2 or 3 of them out and about. And then there's one that I almost never see. In fact, when I was moving them to this new enclosure, I thought there were only 3, and perhaps I had lost another, but just looked a little bit deeper, and there he was in the substrate waiting to be found. So luckily I didn't jump the gun there and went through all of the substrate. More to come on these guys in the future, but that will likely be slow and far and few in between. My canyon giants. I bought these guys specifically for my African fat tail gecko's enclosure. Her name is Stripe, and they're technically called giant canyon isopods, but that's so much less awesome than canyon giants. So I only refer to them as canyon giants. I got them specifically because I read that they tend to burrow more, and this will hopefully allow them to avoid predation by Stripe. I'm not sure if she will eat them, to be honest, but I'd rather be a little bit safer in that regard. And I started with roughly 20. When I purchased them, they had 2 cups, I guess, whatever they're called, that were kind of both died off, and I mentioned that to them and they combined them. So I got 20 for the price of 10-ish, maybe, something around that. So I'm happy, very happy about that. But what I initially did was split them roughly 50-50, putting 10 in an enclosure and then the other 10 directly into the bioactive. And as they are a burrowing species, I won't likely see much of them, and hopefully neither will Stripe. But I do have that separate colony going if I feel I need to put some more in there, and hopefully that separate colony will take off and I can, keep that going and keep them propagating and, hey, having a good time and loving life. So while, as mentioned, they tend to burrow and all that, you won't see them much. They will eventually appear on a Flip It Friday because I am going to, go through their enclosure, see what I can find, make sure everything's going well with them. And now my Gestroy, or as I call them, the Wolverine isopod. These are my favorite species. Everything about them, their color in and of itself is just amazing. They stand out. They grab your attention. They make you just want to watch them. And I do call them Wolverine isopods because I happen to live in the state of Michigan and they look like, at least to me, little U of M football player helmets, which is just rad. They are also one of, if not the largest Armadillidium isopods out there, and they're extremely hardy, enjoy, and can thrive in a variety of climates. These guys have been a bit of an exercise in patience for me in that I've had to move their enclosure recently as I wasn't happy with the way it ended up, and that ended up for the better as the new one is a lot more optimal and I'm seeing a lot of progress with them, and I'm eager for them to get to a point that I can put them in an even larger enclosure like how I have the zebras set up. I tend to be, at least I'm noticing as of right now, partial to isopods with yellow. And that's also why I'm drawn to my spinnies. But my favorite color happens to be blue, a deep sky kind of, well, maybe not sky, but deep dark blue. I like it. Oh, I say night sky kind of. So these guys just have so much going on for them and mesh with me so well. Just their attitude, their pace, their color. I'm in love with these guys. And that is it in regards to isopods. If you are only here for that, thank you, and let me know any comments, care instructions, questions, husbandry advice, or how your day is going down below. Go easy. October is, generally speaking, a mixed but nice enough month for me. The thing I specifically dislike the most is that almost as long as I can remember, it's almost always cold and rainy on Halloween, which is no fun for anyone. This year was an exception, however, albeit it didn't seem like it was going to be nice originally, as most of the day it was, as mentioned, cold and rainy and just sloppy and gray looking. But the weather broke and the rain stopped, so instead of cold and rainy, it was just cool and kind of wet out. But that's better than cold and rainy, right? Kiddos are getting bigger as expected. Bobo, my youngest, has been testing me, which is a good way to reflect on your parenting abilities. I've been a little too hands off with her in terms of letting her use her device. It's difficult for me balancing that, as I'm not a fan of kids having devices and direct access to social media and YouTube, but with it in her life, I am now making sure that I'm aware of how long she's on, what she's doing, and all of that. And she's making friends at school, showing progress there, which is awesome. I do worry that as my youngest, I baby her, and with COVID, I know kids are behind developmentally, and that just is something I need to be aware of. But I asked her teacher about that specifically, and he said he doesn't see any signs of it. In fact, she's excelling, which is good. I'm very happy about that. God, I love her, and I just don't want her to grow up. So let's move on to Dubs, the middle child, and she's awesome. A little bit of context, I'm a middle child too, so I'm kind of partial. If you end up listening to this, actually listening to this, I should say, and feel like it, ask me in the comments section about the time she really tested my resolve and how positive and awesome it was and how much we just grew from it. Digression aside, she's my most independent, and I mean this in every capacity. In general, with me, with friends, with parents, just she's off on her own little world most of the time, doing what Dubs wants to do, and I appreciate that. Where my youngest has her device I need to monitor, I actually need to monitor the degree at which I give Dubs her room and space and all of that, as it can be very easily misconstrued as ignoring her or preferring others over her. And again, it's balancing that, giving her that, but then also making sure that I reinforce it, show her attention. And even sometimes, if she wants to do something other than what I want to do, make her do it if it's with her. You know, show her that sometimes you do that anyway, you sacrifice. It's a constant balancing act, but it's awesome. And then there's Gigi, my oldest, and this is hard because she's getting older, and while Dubs is more independent in general, Gigi's getting there, but independent in a different way. It's just the natural maturity and I guess maybe growing apart, which is, again, not in the bad way, just the nature of growing up. And I'm trying to navigate all of that and make sure I'm in her life as a father, but you got to give her room to grow. You know, you can't have you can't have a plant a flower and stand over it. It's not going to get the right light So, man, and giving her room to make mistakes is always tough. More so, balancing wanting, guiding her to what I want her to do versus guiding her in general because I don't want to push her too much in my direction, but I don't want to push her in the right direction at the same time. It's interesting. She's talking about volleyball next year, which is great. So, we'll see all that. For me personally, this particular October has been very rough. The economy is not the best. Things are more expensive, and I'm a disabled veteran unable to work, so I'm not able to just go out and get another shift or work hard to get a raise or quit my job and go look somewhere else. And trying to save any and everything for Christmas gives me a lot of stress and anxiety. This just normally, and it's, a little bit worse this year. But the weather was nice enough, and while I did go out on quite a few walks, I'm not happy with that and want to go out more, which is going to be challenging as the weather gets colder, but we'll see about that. It's never stopped me before, but I am getting older and all that, and I do not want to go out there and kill myself, freeze myself to death or something like that, just to make sure I'm getting out. I got to make sure I pace myself and am very careful about that, which I always am, but again, I don't want to become so good at it that I become lax at it, so to speak. And with October out of the way and nothing more to say, it has been my Isopods and more with me. I hope all is going well with you and you're taking care of yourselves and the ones you love. Go easy.